Okay, hello, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today, we'll be talking about amplifying the voices of Black girls. My name is Minnie Chen from Mentor National, and I'll be just helping kick us off. So let's get started. So before we get started, I just wanted to share some housekeeping slides on the next slide. Thank you. All attendees have been muted for the best sound. However, we want this to be a participatory experience. So please use the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions you might have for our panelists throughout the webinar. You can also chat us and kind of introduce yourselves in the chat, or if you have any comments to share, but please make sure if you would like to share your message with the entire audience to change the setting to all panelists and attendees in the chat. There are also live captions available by clicking on the CC live transcript button at the bottom of your screen next to the Q&A. I'll be helping queue up any questions to share with the panelists during the Q&A. So we might not get to all the questions, but since there are several hundred of you on the webinar, but we'll do our best. The questions that we share with our panelists are generally ones that broaden or deepen the conversation. And if we're unable to get to your question today, feel free to reach out to Mentor or our panelists who have shared their contact information, and that will be shared near the end of the webinar. So please note that this webinar is being recorded. In about 1 week, you will all receive an email with information about how to download the slides, as well as view the recording. You can also access this information directly by going to Mentor's website in the next week. And to continually improve the series, we're looking for your input. So please help us out by taking a couple minutes to give us your feedback with the short survey. So now I want to turn it over to our facilitator for the conversation, Bianca Myrick, who is a TA provider and consultant with Mentor Virginia, as well as the executive director of Pretty Purposed.
Hello, everyone. So excited to be here. We're going to be talking about a lot today, and I would say the main takeaways for today is to learn how to support and build resilience in supporting Black girls, see what other organizations are doing that serve Black girls. You're going to get some advice on implementing mental health initiatives in your organization's programming, and how do we amplify the needs of Black girls through youth voice, and you'll learn some tips on how to support as an ally. So we have with us today Jamila Tremuel. Jamila is from the South Side of Chicago. She's a former leader in health systems management. She transitioned to study educational leadership, and she is the founder and CEO of Ladies of Virtue Chicago, which is an award-winning mentoring program. She is also a TEDx speaker, and she's the co-author of a status report on teen girls in Chicago, which is published by the Coalition on Urban Girls. So just a little bit about Ladies of Virtue. Ladies of Virtue was launched in 2011, and it empowers girls to become confident and purpose-driven leaders. Ladies of Virtue matches girls with mentors and prepare them for leadership through character development, career readiness, and civic engagement. They also provide mentoring and support for up to 6 years post-high school as Love for Life alumni, and the program focuses on building generational wealth through entrepreneurship, investing, real estate, career readiness, and post-secondary education. And then we have with us Tammy Mobley. So Tammy is the United States of Women Ambassador for the state of Virginia. She is a certified empowerment and relationship coach. She is the founder of Real Girls, which stands for Responsible, Empowered, and Loved. It's a character development and leadership program for girls. Tammy is a domestic violence survivor and advocate, and she is the radio talk show host of Beyond Surviving with Tammy. And Tammy is also a consultant for Mentor Virginia. She also consults with the Virginia Department of Social Services and the Partnership for Youth with Disabilities. And so just a little bit about real girls. Real girls are responsible for their actions in their home, school, and community. They're empowered to use their voice, and they are loved by their family and peers and their Real Girls family. Real Girls does an interactive, fun empowerment group at multiple schools within the Chesterfield County School District and Richmond Public Schools. And we really assist girls to process the ups and downs in life. So the overall mission is to provide a safe space for girls to develop meaningful, healthy relationships and incorporate self-care techniques while developing those leadership skills. And so just a little bit about myself. I am an elementary and middle grades teacher. I'm the founder and executive director of Pretty Purpose, and I'm also a consultant for Mentor Virginia. And I also teach at Virginia State University in their Department of Teaching and Learning. And so Pretty Purpose is a nonprofit organization that is also dedicated to empowering girls through mentorship in activities that promote healthy physical, social, and emotional development. So all of us are really connected because all three of us have founded and are in leadership roles in organizations that really the focal point is to empower and uplift girls. So we are going to go ahead and get started. First, let's just take a pulse on who is in the room. So we have a couple of poll questions here. So the first one is, what is your experience level in the mentoring field? All right. So it looks like we have about 59% that are experienced, 15% expert, and 26% beginners. All right, we have another question. So what best describes your role in the mentoring field? Are you staff, mentor, educator? Maybe you're a technical assistance provider, researcher, funder, or other. All right, so it looks like the majority of us on the call are mentoring program and staff. We have some mentors here. We have some educators here, love educators. And we have some TA providers here, researchers and funders. Oh, this is great. And then we just have one more question. Does your organization or program, or I guess in the capacity that you work, do you serve Black girls? Okay, 100%, yes. All right. All right, well, we are going to get started now that we know who is in the room. So first, I just want to start with going over a little bit of research. We know that Black girls have unique needs just based on gender, racial, and historical trauma. So I just want to talk about just some of the inequities and the issues that Black girls face and have to overcome. One thing that Black girls have to overcome is adultification bias. And so this adultification bias is basically just research that says that individuals actually feel like Black girls need less support, nurturing, and protection than white girls. Adults have less empathy for Black girls. Black girls face negative stereotypes, the same negative stereotypes that Black women face, they're projected upon Black girls, and that racism, poverty, and sexism are all factors in this adultification bias. Black girls also face higher rates of in and out of school discipline. Black girls are suspended 5 times as often than white girls and are almost 3 times as likely to be referred to the juvenile justice system. Black girls also have less opportunities and access to early childcare, fully funded schools, extracurriculars such as organized sports, the performing arts, and STEM exposure. And Black girls face higher rates of gender-based violence, homicide, harassment, and adverse childhood experiences. And so how does this translate to some of the outcomes that Black women experience? Black women have higher rates of maternal mortality, bigger pay disparities and wealth gap, less leadership opportunities. Black women experience domestic violence at a 35% higher rate than white women. And Black women are actually more likely to experience intimate partner homicide. So when we think about the trauma and some of the experiences of Black girls, we know that there's multiple ways that we can support, but first let's define what is trauma. Trauma is defined as a deeply disturbing or distressing experience. Adverse childhood experiences are potentially traumatic events that occur between the ages of 0 and 17. ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, can really undermine a child's sense of safety, stability, and bonding. And I think a critical factor here is that women, just women overall, and then several racial, ethnic, and minority groups are actually at greater risk for having experienced 4 or more types of ACEs. So this would be like specific traumatic events. So when we think about the research, you know, I would just be interested in knowing, Tammy, could you share with us how has trauma shown up in some of the work that you do?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I'm very passionate about working with women and girls. So this is like kind of my jam here. So this picture that I have here is actually two of my real girls. This was at senior send-off day, and we provided keepsake packages for them because, you know, after senior, they're both going away to college. So we want to let them have something that reminded them of real girls. So we had journals and pens and things like that in there. What's also something about this picture is that both of these girls have experienced traumatic experiences through their high school years. So one of the girls in here, and I'm not going to say which one is which, but one of the girls' cousin was brutally murdered on December 30th of 2019. She was the victim of a domestic violence incident. And when her parents found her, she was stabbed to death. The other young lady, March of this year, her sister was discovered inside of a car dead. So I just think about how much trauma that our girls go through just for them to even make it through high school. So this happened, one of the girls at their 11th grade year and the other girl at her 12th grade year, and just what they had to experience just to make it through high school. So we need to celebrate them. Just before, like a couple of years ago when I was a youth program director, just to go back, also talking about trauma, I had a young lady that was in my class, and because I'm an enrichment class, they are not obligated or mandatory to be in my class. So of course, if they're lower in the academic area, they're pulled out of my class. So I had one young lady that was pulled out of my class often because her SOL scores were low. And we usually meet with them about 12 weeks. So at the end of the 12 weeks, and it was Christmas time, I said, was asking everybody, what were they doing for their Christmas vacation? So in our family, every Christmas we would go away to Florida just to get out of the cold. And this one young lady said, well, I'm going to do the one thing I'm thinking about doing is getting a shirt made. And she said, I need 2 shirts made, one for my mom and one for my dad. So I said to her, why would you get 2 shirts made instead of just like 1 shirt or whatever? And she said, because her father killed her mom and then killed himself. So our girls are constantly dealing with trauma. But what struck me was that was the last day that I was going to have any contact with her. And why couldn't someone tell me us ahead of time and saying, so I could have probably been working with her through these 12 weeks instead of on the last day saying, wow, there's nothing that I could do right now. So that's some ways that trauma has showed up with me working with my girls.
Oh, thank you, Tammy, for sharing that. And I think it's important that you noted, how big of a role that the educational system has in supporting girls. I mean, as a program provider, like you said, had you, been informed, there are different steps that you could have taken. So how did you approach these situations specifically? How have you supported or how do you support girls that may have faced trauma?
So just going back to the young lady that cousin was died, because I'm a domestic violence survivor and I provide advocacy, I was actually going to go to court with the family because they were coming up to court this year in April, but it was postponed. So I'm still very much in contact with the young lady and her family so I could be as a support for them. And far as what we do now, we do self-care bingo. So I create bingo cards, and on the bingo cards, it has anything on it, like going for walks, talking on the phone with your friends, and we do bingo. So we just don't say, have it across and just say bingo. So actually whoever has bingo, they have to say, okay, I have, that I checked off that I go for a walk. And I say, well, how often did you go for a walk? Especially during COVID, a lot of our girls was inside. So how often did you go for a walk? How often did you go and did you talk to your friend? When was your last TikTok video you did? So anything that's on the self-care bingo form. Positive affirmation boxes, we contracted with another organization, and in that picture there, they came and did the positive affirmation boxes, and the young ladies had to write positive affirmations and stick them on their boxes and in their boxes. We do a weekly check-in. At the beginning of each session, we stop and say, how are things going? And it doesn't make a difference what it is. And we celebrate everything. So even if a young lady said, I got my hair done yesterday, we're celebrating that. We're like, all right, you look really great. We love your hair. So anything they tell us. And we do art therapy. We partner with another organization, Art of Me, and they provided canvases, paint, water bottles, and we did art therapy. And with this session, what they did when they put the paint on it, the paint reflected different emotions of the girls. And so they had to talk about their emotion. And what was great about this, because it was recent, they were able actually to sit outside and do this activity, that they weren't confined in the house. So we do a lot of things to promote mental health.
No, thank you, Tammy. That's great. So, what are your suggestions for mentoring and youth programs that work with Black girls?
One of the suggestions is to have guest speakers, mentors, people that look like them, people that are in high positions also. Let it be a doctor, let it be a nurse, let it be an astronaut, let it be someone that could come in there and they could say, oh yeah, I would love to have you. Just 2 weeks ago, I had Miss Virginia team that came in and did a goal setting session with our girls. And our girls were able to ask them, like, how does it feel to be a Black girl in a predominantly white beauty pageant, a pageant like that? So just celebrate anything to do that, and also celebrate them constantly. I was in a panel a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling the panel that my son was accepted to North Carolina A&T. And I told them that when I tell my white counterparts that he's accepted, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, oh, okay. Oh, well, what is he, what is he studying in? Or there's just silence. But if I tell one of my Black counterparts, they're throwing their hands up, they're clapping, they're celebrating and everything. So in my mind, I just thought, what if this was one of my girls? What if someone asked one of my girls, what school were you're going to attend? And they told them that it was a HBCU, and the reception that they got was silence. So to support us, sometimes we don't even get in contact with our non-biases or our non-verbal communication, because your non-verbal communication could be saying a lot when you're trying to build a relationship with one of our Black girls. Also allow them to lead and choose activities. At the beginning of each session, we asked them, what would they like to do? We've had numerous girls lead activities. Cooking, we've done cooking virtually. We've had them choose an activity like for the homeless shelter. So have them lead activities. So those are some suggestions, and offer a safe, non-judgmental space, because sometimes as parents and as providers, we're thinking, oh, well, maybe they shouldn't do that, but it's allow them to share.
No, I love that you said that sometimes we have to take our other hats off.
Yes.
So you mentioned earlier when we were just discussing trauma, the mental health challenges and how you support mental health. So this is for Jamila. I know that Love Chicago actually provides mental health services. So could you tell us a little bit about what you've observed during the pandemic and how this has actually impacted girls?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you again for having me as well. And I have two of my love sisters, our participants, Olivia and Melanie, who will be sharing their thoughts as the conversation progresses. But when the stay-at-home order hit, oh my goodness, back in March 2020, it was not only devastating for us, but for our girls as well. And they would join our calls talking about the isolation that they faced, talking about the uncertainty. Of course, we had seniors whose graduations and proms were canceled, and they had been looking forward to those moments throughout their entire lives. But one thing we also realized in very short order is that some of our families literally lost their jobs, did not know how they were going to put food on the table. And so we distributed a survey in April 2020, where we found that 42% of our families reported that they lost their jobs or had their work hours reduced. And in that very same survey, over 70% requested mental health support. And as you know, mental health in our community is such a taboo topic, right? But what we found in the midst of all the trauma and devastation that was happening is that they realized, our parents and our girls realized that they needed that additional support. And so those are some of the few things that we saw. And so if you go to the next slide, this is not unique just to our organization. As you heard from Bianca with the research, the national research, there was a phenomenal body of research conducted by A Long Walk Home, which is a community-based organization here in Chicago that focuses on Black girls. And so it's important to note, as Bianca mentioned earlier, about all the trauma that our girls faced even prior to the pandemic. In this particular study, 83% of Black girls who responded to this study reported a history of trauma before the pandemic, meaning that they had sexual violence. There was experience with domestic violence, experience with gun violence and police violence. So they were encountering all of this even before the pandemic hit. And then 25% said that they were dealing with the loss of a parent or sibling before the pandemic. And so when this pandemic hit, you see the research that's on the slide, 62% indicated an increase in nightmares, 69% indicated an increase in anxiety, and 59% increase in depression, 41% in hopelessness, and 27% reported an increase in suicidal ideation or even attempted suicide. And so this was really a time where our girls needed more supports than ever before. And so what we did, and this is the next slide, what we did was we really supported our girls in a multifaceted way. And for one thing, just so you know, we serve over 200 girls annually across the Chicagoland area. The majority of our girls are coming from the south and west sides of Chicago, but we also have girls coming from the surrounding suburbs as well. And so we served over 200 girls annually last year, as well as 1,220 residents in the community, because so many of us, myself included, are from the communities that our girls live in. And so we wanted to be a part of the solution. So what we did was we partnered with quite a few organizations to really help serve the needs of our girls. We partnered with one organization that provided a $500 stipend to 47 of our families, our hardest hit families, who really needed those groceries to pay rent, car note, things of that sort, because of the job status was changed during the pandemic. As you see here, was a picture where we mailed groceries to families in need. We were able to save money from the switch from in-person to online. We used to serve meals and lunches and all of that and during our session. And so because we didn't have to pay for our lunches at the session, we used those funds to mail groceries to homes, and that was, we got a lot of testimonies from our families really who were in need at that time. And plus, you will also note that we had a lot of rioting and looting in Chicago, where grocery stores were closed as well. So we not only were able to meet the need from a funding standpoint, but a lot of times people couldn't even access the grocery stores in Chicago. So we wanted to make sure we stood in the gap from that standpoint. Another piece that we did was we also we visited homes in Chicago, where we would drop off PPE kits, so mask and hand sanitizer, with a handwritten note to say, hey, we are thinking about you, we love you, we care about you. So we went to the homes, those that lived in Chicago. We drove to their homes to make sure that they knew that even though we could not see them in person, we were there every step of the way. Another piece that we did do as well was in our workshops, when we met with our girls every first and third Saturday virtually, and you can go back to that last slide, one more point there with the second picture. The reason why she's holding up that art studio easel set is because girls who indicated that they that they were isolating themselves from their families and really needed that extra boost, we allowed them to select an activity that they could do with their families. And so that's what the second picture is showing you. One of our girls, she selected our art studio easel set, but other girls chose like board games and oil kits and so forth to really be able to interact with their families. And it was so good to see pictures of families coming together during a time where there was so much isolation. And so with the next slide, one other piece that we did, we had always had a licensed clinical counselor to come during the month of December to talk about how to manage emotions. So we had already have been providing that in the past, but during the pandemic, because of the surveys, because of the feedback during our workshops, we expanded the mental health support that we provided our girls and our parents. We had several large group sessions where 20, 30 of our girls would talk about how to manage emotions, how do you know when you even need mental health support? We had smaller girl chats as well. One thing that has been very popular is the small group sessions. So one thing that we noticed was that a lot of our girls didn't want to do the one-on-one counseling. We do have some, but not as many signed up for one-on-one. But we found that a lot would sign up if there were 4 or 5 girls in a smaller group, because now they can interact with their peers, they can kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and they could share more about what's really going on in a safe environment. So the small group sessions with 4 to 5 girls, it's a 7-week with a licensed clinical counselor. And that has been going really well. I've been getting a lot of great testimonials about how they now feel more supported, as well as they know how to control their emotions because of the 7-week session. And then the last 2, I'll just mention in terms of the parent workshops. One thing that we found as we were providing support to our girls is that sometimes we would hear, my mom is not understanding me right now. I'm very frustrated. I have a lot going on. And my mom is telling me that my needs aren't as major because she's the one that has to work. She's the one that has to figure out how to put food on the table. So my concerns about prom may not be as a big deal right now in my household, and that's causing frustration. So that's just an example, but we heard that time and time again. And so we started providing monthly parent workshops on toxic parenting, on how to communicate with your daughter and so forth. We found, got a lot of great feedback from our parents as well for that piece. I talked a little bit about the activity kits, but the one piece that I will share with you as what came out of those small group sessions is that sometimes they would share with the counselor, right now my home is cold. So we would mail like blankets. Or if someone would say, I don't have a desk, you know, maybe they're talking to the counselor, because mentors, or I was not on those calls, but the counselor would come to say, hey, this person really would like a blanket, or this person really needs a desk. And so we would provide that support as well. But that was, and one last piece that I forgot to mention here is that we also launched Love Grows last summer, where our girls learned, and their families learned, how to grow their own food. And what we found out through research is that being outside in nature and gardening actually helps to improve your mental health as well. And so that's something that, even though we added that because of the pandemic last summer, that's a program that's here to stay, because it's not only teaching our girls and families a new skill, but it also improves mental health. And that's important, especially during these times.
So Jamila, if programs were thinking about, you know, implementing a mental health component, you know, what would your advice be?
Yes, absolutely. So the first piece I will always say in terms of my advice is listen to the participants in your youth program. As we were having those girl talks, there would be some deep conversation, and I would text, you know, some of our girls to say, you know what, I heard what you said. How can we be of support? And it was so surprising. Sometimes I would just hear simple things like, you know what, I just want to have, just make us laugh. Let's just have fun. And sometimes as adults, we want to think about, you know, things in such a deep way. And really, they just want to have fun because they want to not think about, you know, some of the other issues that are going on in the moment. And so that's why we would do things like a game night. That's why we would have a virtual cooking session, you know, a movie night, things like that, just so that we could help to keep their minds off of some of the more traumatic things that may be going on in their life. The second point, as I talked about before, in terms of providing the parents with workshops, sometimes we are so focused on the participants, the youth, but we kind of forget about the parents and how they may need some skills as well. And so incorporating a separate workshop for them has been very impactful for us. Be creative. You'll see some of an example towards the end where we leverage social media to allow our girls to have creative outlets. We've had a talent show so that our girls can showcase their gifts and talents. So there's multiple ways in which you can go about adding creativity and fun in your program. The next piece is identifying critical partnerships. So our sweet spot is in mentoring and leadership. We did not have expertise in mental health, if you will, but we understood the importance and the value of it. And so we identified critical partnerships that can help meet the need of the participants and the families that we serve. I will say one big change that we made going to this next bullet point in terms of hiring someone with mental health expertise on your staff, we brought in a director of mentor training, and we were intentional about making sure that that person had a mental health background. She has a license in clinical social work. And so that was really, we had hired her right before the pandemic, and that was right on time for us, because as we were thinking about adding new components to our program, she was just a phone call away. She was the one that, you know, advised the smaller groups, the 101. Now we're going to be offering restorative justice training for our mentors, a lot of different activities, the art therapy where we were sending the kits to our girls. We've had painting, the paint and sips and all of that. A lot of our ideas came from our staff who has that mental health background. And so in addition to the girls that provided ideas, we also leaned on Jennifer as well. And then last but not least, hire mental health facilitators that are relatable and can commit to a long-term collaboration. So Chanel, who you saw in one of the pictures in the slide before, she's been with us for about 5 or 6 years. And so when it was time to expand our mental health component to a more virtual setting, and we needed more services and all of that, she'd already worked with us. So she knew the culture of our organization. She knew the type of programming that we had already offered. And so it was a seamless transition during the pandemic because we already had those critical pieces in place.
That's great. So I noticed like the first bullet point is to listen to the participants in your youth program. And that's actually a perfect segue into youth voice. So of course, asking the participants, just getting their input on what they want to do and what they need. So tell us about what are both of your organizations doing to amplify the voices of Black girls and women? Just share your experience in this space.
Okay, thank you. Coming back to me. So I am the host, radio talk show host of Beyond Survival with Tammy, where we recognize, empower, and support survivors. And a lot of times we don't even think about what a survivor is. Because I'm a domestic violence survivor, a lot of people think that, okay, that it should only be domestic violence survivors on the show. But a survivor is anyone that's gone through any sort of life challenge. So last year, when our girls first experienced COVID-19, I said, they're survivors as well. And a lot of times, just like what Jamila was saying that they're back in the back of their parents' minds sometimes, because the parents are going through so much stuff that we're not even thinking about what our young girls are going through. So what I did was created a contest for our girls, and the girls had to create videos telling me how they are surviving through a pandemic and what are they doing. And last year we were in the heart of it, so they really couldn't go anywhere. But I did have girls that took videos of them going to the supermarket and wiping down the carts and cleaning their hands and with their mask on. And then, so we had about 8 to 10 girls actually submit videos in. And what we did, we picked the top 3 and I invited them to be guests on the radio show. So on the radio show, we asked them questions about, how are you doing right now? Do you want to go back to school in person? How is it staying home virtually? And we heard a lot that they did not want to be home virtually, but of course, here in Richmond Public Schools, a lot of them had to be virtual actually for this entire year. We heard about just to see the excitement of just being together at one time in a studio, just being there, just the excitement in their voices. The thing that they were doing, I had one girl that was there that said that since the pandemic, she said, I didn't do anything. I wasn't able to see any of my friends. I wasn't able to see any of my family. I wasn't able to do anything just to be in there. So just giving them a voice for them to say, okay, I'm a young girl, but I'm going through this pandemic as well. We're suffering through COVID as well. A couple of months ago, School After Hours, they had a podcast and they invited real girls to talk about some issues that talk about racial discrimination and bullying. And it opened even my eyes because the girls that I've been with the whole time when they were in this podcast, that they were able to share so much information. So one of the things that really struck me, because I was quiet the whole time, but my facial expression, they probably could see, is that one of the young ladies said that a girl came to school with braids in her hair. A girl that was not of color came to school with braids in her hair. And the teacher said, oh, so you look like them now. So things just like that our girls are hearing, that maybe a teacher is thinking like, oh, you just look like them, and saying it innocently, but it's not really innocently when you're saying it to one of our students. One of the other girls said that she was bullied for about 3 years. And the only reason the bully stopped was because her mother said that I'm going to go ahead and talk to the news, because every time they would speak to administration would come back to them and say, oh, well, his father died. So it was just minimizing what she was going through and just saying, well, this young man's father died, so it was okay for him to bully you. So until her mother said, you know what, well, we're going to tell the news. And then that's when all of a sudden the bully stopped. So just having them provide a voice, share their voice and say, you know what, this is not right. We've talked about a lot of things, even during our class. We talked about George Floyd, we talked about his death and how that affected them. We talked about the 13-year-old that was killed by police a couple of months ago. So our platform is for them to share their voice. So no matter if I have something planned, I give them the opportunity to say whatever that's on their mind. And this is our video. Hopefully it could play. This is the video when they were talking about what they did in COVID-19. Volume. Yeah, I don't hear it, Bianca. You know why?
You said you don't hear it.
No, we don't hear it.
Okay, let me see. Maybe it's because.
Just share your audio.
Yeah, share my audio.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna give it a try. Let me know if you all hear it.
Okay.
Real throughout this pandemic.
I always wear my mask in the store.
So I have some Lysol wipes to clean everything down.
My name is Darnisha Shackelford.
Hi, my name is Renee Chapman. Hey guys, it's Nisha and I here.
Hello everyone, my name is Destiny Dillard.
I'm Zinnia from Carver Academy, and I'm gonna tell you guys how I've been keeping it real throughout this pandemic.
I always wear my mask in the store.
So I have some Lysol wipes to clean everything down.
I pray probably every day. I make sure to keep my hands away from my face at all times.
I use hand sanitizer. I wear gloves.
I've been in quarantine with my family, wearing a mask and using hand sanitizer. I do my own nails.
And I help my mom disinfect common used items around the house, such as doorknobs.
I have this spray bottle. It's actually antibacterial soap. I wash my hands for 30 seconds to about a minute.
Keep areas very, very clean.
As soon as you get back into the car, you need to put hand sanitizer on.
I haven't been to any family gatherings, birthday parties, or large events.
I just wash my hands with warm water and soap.
Even if it's just to come outside, I have a face mask.
If I have to interact with others, I make it my responsibility to wear my mask, social distance, and use hand sanitizer.
I have some disinfectant spray. I redecorated my whole room.
Stay at home. Because I am responsible, I am empowered, and I am loved.
Yeah, stay safe, social distance, and be careful.
Thank you. Have a blessed day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. See ya.
Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
So that was a little video that they did. I was so proud of them because, you know, did it during the pandemic, so they had to do this on their own, and they sent it over to me. So that was just another way that I provide my real girls to use their voice. So thank you for letting me share that.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. And you know what I love? I just love how as program providers, you know, we're able to shift and we're able to still provide meaningful experiences in the middle of a pandemic when everything was virtual. Now that was great. So same for you, Jamila. How does Ladies of Virtue amplify the voices of Black girls and women?
Yes, absolutely. So before I even speak to that, at the heart of everything that we do, I have two fundamental beliefs. One is that our Black youth are not just leaders of tomorrow, but they are our leaders of today. And for me, that's critical in how we view them, right? Like, they're not babies. They have their own passions, ideas, convictions, and I believe in providing the platform to showcase every gift and talent that they have. And then the second piece is you can't be it if you can't see it. And so Tammy mentioned this before, but within everything that we do, we are very intentional about having Black mentors, Black women who are doing the thing, right? Who are serving in higher positions, whether it's elected officials, whether it's in health, regardless of what career it is, we want our participants to see themselves, and that's critical for me. We also are very intentional about discussing Black issues and then highlighting Black women who are making history, whether or not it's in the past or even modern current day. So I wanted to start off by saying that first. And within everything that we do, as we mentioned before, we are preparing our girls for leadership in 3 ways. So character development, career readiness, and civic engagement. And then I'll provide a couple of examples, and then I want Olivia to jump in as well. But for our character development, we have a love law. And it starts off by saying, I am a lady of virtue, a young woman of worth and beauty. My beauty comes from my character. And every month there is a theme based on our love law. And our girls are identifying icebreakers or topics, and they share what that particular theme of the month means to them. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is career readiness. An example that I can give there is our STEM Beautiful program, which I really love that particular program because it's a 6-week summer program that we offer that combines STEM as well as the beauty and fashion industry for middle school girls. And one thing that I love about it is because in the program, at the beginning of every session, they identify a Black woman that really has done incredible work either in STEM or in the beauty or fashion industry. And our participants are the ones who is highlighting it, who's showcasing that particular Black woman and then why that person was chosen. And so that allows them to enhance their confidence and communication skills. And then last but not least, and this is what Olivia will go into more detail about, is our civic engagement program. And this is really what makes us stand out, I believe, where our girls are identifying topics that they're passionate about. Even prior to the pandemic, we were partnering with community organizations that pertain to that specific topic. But even in the midst of the pandemic, they're taking what they learn based on the research that they've conducted and then go out and teaching their peers through marketing awareness campaigns, through workshops. This year it was video or podcast, and then presenting that impact to community leaders. And so, Olivia, if you could then just introduce yourself and share a little bit about the mental health project that you have done.
Alrighty. Well, hello. My name is Olivia Kelsey. I've been a member of Ladies of Virtue for, I want to say 5 years. And so my big thing was working in mental health service projects, right? You know, like it wasn't the exact same like every year, but it'd be, you know, overcrossing of mental health and Black girls' mental health in the homeless community, and you know, just mental health as a whole. So one of my first projects, I was a team member of. We were centered around like focused on being blessed and not stressed. So we highlighted how people without homes, especially Black people without homes, often have this level of stress that they're carrying with them every single day of their lives. So what we did was we either passed out food or we passed out little goodie bags with like candy and bracelets and, you know, heartwarming messages just to uplift their spirits and just remind them that they're loved and that they're people as well. And we've also I've also been a part of projects where we volunteered for a teen homeless shelter, and we've my groups have spoken to mental health professionals numerous times, just to, you know, gain more understanding of what Black youth go through mentally, you know, due to all of the trials that we face in society today. And I think it was my sophomore year. Yes, it was my sophomore year where my group actually ran an art therapy session. And at that point we were in person, and we collaborated with a different Black girls mentorship group. The name escapes me at the moment, but my group organized the event. We you know, we budgeted for it. We, you know, reserved space for it. And we allowed this open space to have these these Black girls express themselves artistically. And I think that was just a really important learning experience, because it just unlocked a whole new way to express yourself in a safe and tangible way, right? And this this past year, for you know, while we're still at home, my group, I was the what's it called, project manager for that group, and called Loving Your Mind, which was you know, really honing in on the issues that Black girls specifically face from a mental health perspective. And we recorded a podcast session. It was all virtual, and we did some research on various topics, like the intersectionality between you know, mental health and gender and race, you know, mental health from a religious perspective, and just, you know, the overall the stigmatization of how you know, basically it's just not talked about. And I remember this one clip we saw of actress Taraji P. Henson talking about her attempt to, I believe she attempted to take her own life at some point. And, you know, that was a really a strong focal point for us, because it's just the realization that this is an issue that's affecting not only Black girls, but Black women to now and today. So, you know, we've done other things like research, you know, looking at statistics and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are the projects that I was a part of.
Thank you, Olivia. Great job on your projects. And she also presented on social media this past month, focusing on mental health as well. And so that's just one example of how Ladies of Virtue amplifies the voices of our Black girls. You can go to the next slide. Great job, Olivia.
So I just think that what you all shared was great. And so for program providers, you know, what can other programs do to amplify the voices of Black girls?
Yes, and so that the recurring theme here is ask your youth what they would like to do, because you would get more ideas than you would ever imagine just by simply asking. And this goes beyond just submitting or distributing a survey, right? Picking up the phone to say, hey, how did you like today's session? How could we do it a little bit better? What else could we do? Or piggybacking off of maybe a comment that they made earlier in the session, and then just calling them to say, you really made some insightful comments. How else can we add upon or enhance the program that we currently offer? Because sometimes you'll get more through those type of conversations than just a survey. So make sure that you're doing other things other just your year-end survey. The second piece is have girls engage with other youth from different backgrounds. This has been really good for us in terms of we have participated in a number of youth summits, and we want to even do more of this as the years progress. But I remember some of our youth had attended an event at a predominantly white school and saw firsthand some of the resources and opportunities that school had in comparison to her school. And what she ended up doing was doing her leadership project on the inequities in the school systems and how different Chicago school systems, the schools are based on your zip code. But she would not have thought about that topic had she not been engaged with other youth from different backgrounds, racial ethnicities, you know, and so forth. And so that exposure is key, and those conversations with girls from across your community are key as well. The next piece is incorporating hands-on project-based activities. As you heard from Olivia, whether or not it's podcasting, videos, starting your own business, marketing awareness campaigns, workshops. All of this really helps to hone their project management, communication, collaboration, and time management skills. It truly allows them to identify topics that they truly care about, and then they express that to the community. And so that what we are finding is that that truly allows them to not only build their confidence, but sometimes that leads to future careers as well. When we've had girls to focus on healthy eating and active living in children, and now they're teachers, and now they are daycare providers. And so those are critical projects that can really change their lives. The next piece is exposing youth to different opportunities. And so this is where the traveling comes in. In Chicago, there are, you can go to another neighborhood and feel like you're in a whole different world, but also thinking about the experiences outside of Chicago. So we've had our girls to attend, go to HBCUs and Spelman and Clark Atlanta. We've traveled to Washington, D.C., to visit with elected officials in Congress and so forth. And so having those different opportunities, and we'll get back to it post-pandemic, but having those different opportunities truly allows you to understand all of the issues that are going on, and that then will help to amplify their voice as well. And then the next point here is partner with other organizations that can provide opportunities, speaking opportunities, such as this here, or even we've partnered with the Project Management Institute for the last 8 or 9 years, and they allow our participants to speak at their monthly dinner, where that opportunity is critical for our youth because of the fact that now they can go and present their leadership project to a diverse community. That particular event is predominantly white men. And so allowing them to be able to step outside of their comfort zone and have opportunities that they would not have normally had is critical to building confidence and truly understanding who you are and your voice, regardless of who the audience is, speaking up and speaking out about those issues that affect you. And then last but not least, we have really enhanced our social media in terms of how we utilize it. As I mentioned before, Olivia just spoke about mental health on one of our Instagram lives, but I wanted to show this video, which is on the next slide, because some of our youth have really been speaking out about issues pertaining to Black women, Black girls, and so forth. And so this one in particular is our love sis, Vontasia. She wanted to spread the word about because she felt like so many of her peers are really struggling with their mental health. So she came up with a creative video for Ladies of Virtue that she can spread to the world. So if you can press play, you can see how you can utilize your creativity on social media. Thank you.
No, that was awesome. And, I love the tips that you provided. I just thought about everything that you put on here is just so critical, just to providing youth voice. I know Pretty Purpose, we recently did a community service project. Every year they do service projects, and this year they picked what they wanted to do. And we saw that the local community foundation was providing grants to organizations for the service project. And so we broke the girls up into small groups, and one group, they applied for the grant. One group was responsible for the marketing and reaching out to stakeholders. One group was responsible for the budgeting, So once we got the grant, they had to budget, what are the materials that we're going to get to execute this activity? And then we had a group who actually came to do the service activity. And they just felt so empowered because they just felt like they were put into these roles that required such great responsibility. So I just love everything that you shared here. So one last question, before we kind of end this and go to Q&A. A lot of program providers, maybe funders, educators, and other people that are working in the field, they want to know, how can they support Black girls? How can mentoring and youth programs and these individuals support and actually be an ally?
Yes, and I'm going to have Melanie, who's also on. If you can introduce yourself, Melanie, and then share more about how to be an ally.
Hi, so I am Melanie Jones, and I am a student at Howard University, and I am also a Love for Life alumni, and so I've been a part of Ladies of Virtue for 6 years now, and through that time, I've learned a lot about my place as a Black woman, and growing into a Black woman, and how to realize that other people need to be an ally to me. And so first, you have to, as an ally, you have to be willing to research and learn about the issues of the community that you want to serve. And so you have to be willing to read books and watch documentaries and hear about podcasts, because there is a lot of information out there about how to be an ally and about how to learn the problems that these communities have experienced. And if you don't get an understanding of the research and of the issues that are happening, then it becomes a lot harder to really sympathize with these communities. And you also, as an ally, you have to be respectful of the experiences of the people in the Black community. And so that means that if you're hearing about their experiences, you have to be first willing to listen. A lot of the times when Black people are confronting other communities about the hardships that they have faced, and they're feeling vulnerable enough to share their experiences, the people outside of the community usually come back with, oh, but that's not me, I'm not a racist, and oh, I understand, but are they really listening to the experiences that you've had and doing better and learning from those experiences? Because a lot of the times when Black people and Black girls are vulnerable enough to share the experiences that they have had with racism, with sexism, it does reopen a little bit of their trauma wounds. And so you have to understand that in doing so, you really have to support them mentally with their vulnerability, because a lot of the times Black girls don't get the opportunity to be vulnerable. And so you really have to be respectful of those experiences. But you also have to understand in that being an ally, the people of the community have to deem you as an ally. And so whenever I think about this statement, a lot of times people are like, oh, whenever I say this statement, a lot of times are like, oh, well, I am an ally because I've gone to this protest and I've gave money to this organization and I have this friend. But the problem is that as much as you feel like you are doing enough for the Black community and Black girls, and specifically, if the people of that community do not deem you as an ally, you cannot declare yourself an ally. People of that community have to feel like you are doing the work that they need to help us. And so the people of that, for me as a Black girl, I have to understand that everybody who I encounter, as much as they are nice to me, as much as they try to understand me, I have to look inside and find if they are being sincere about the help and the support that they are giving me. And so in doing so, I can deem them as an ally, because a lot of the times it's easy to be like, oh, I'm woke, without doing the actual work for that community. And so it becomes really important as an ally to be willing to learn about the issues, be willing to hear about these experiences, and be willing to understand that your friends and the people that you are supporting of that community are hearing and seeing the work that you are doing to feel like you are actually an ally.
Thank you, Melanie. And I actually just wanted to just also ask Tammy and Jamila, you know, what are some things from your perspective that organizations can do to be allies, that individuals can do to support the needs and the desires of Black girls?
I want to say first, Olivia and Melanie, like, you girls were awesome. So you know what? I always tell people I'm old, like I could talk to people all day, but when we have the youth to share their voice, like y'all the bomb. So I'm going to just clap to you because y'all did so great today. Like my heart is happy just listening to you all. I just wanted to say that before I go in, but I think everything that you have on here, celebrate all accomplishments, like we said before, creating a safe space for the girls to share without judgment or pressure. Virtually, like some girls didn't want to show their face, and there was no pressure to say, okay, put your camera on, because we don't know what their household is like. Sometimes they would just say, well, my hair is not done, Miss Tammy, you know, things like that. But it's like, okay, whatever you don't want to do is fine. And show empathy. And a lot of people do not know the difference between empathy and sympathy. And empathy is just actually stepping into that young person's shoes and being there. And if you don't understand, say you don't understand, instead of saying, oh, wow, I'm so sorry that happened, you know, that you're sympathetic, like, oh, how could that happen to you? Like just being there. And having women of color on your board and as mentors is very important. I have a contract with Richmond Public Schools, and the liaison between the two of us is a program called Next Up RVA. And when Next Up have their meetings with their stakeholders, they ask me to come into their meetings. So I'm able to talk about the experiences that my girls are having. So we have those, so I'm able to be in there and just tell them even the little things that we do. During the year, we also purchased succulent plants for all of our girls because we know that they were having a hard time. And then we talked to our plants and we sang to our plants. So even little things like that for me just to tell them. And again, having those hard conversations just to say, you know what, I don't know what to say sometimes, but at least I'm here for you. And I think, again, the silence is deafening. When you don't say anything, that means that it's speaking louder than if you actually saying some words. So that's my point.
No, thank you, Tammy. Thank you to both of you, and Olivia and Melanie. I mean, y'all are just awesome. Thank you for being here, and you know, thank you just for being bold and courageous. And y'all are just it just when I hear you all speak, it really just brings some light, and it's like this driving force that just keeps me going. So thank you. We are going to get ready to go to Q&A. There's some questions in the chat, and you know, also if anyone can think of anything that they want to ask. See a lot of things coming in, so go ahead and type your questions in the panel. Minnie, I know that we're going to be going till 2:30, so I would say the rest of this time is just for Q&A, correct?
Yes, if you have any questions, feel free. The audience can put in the Q&A. I know we have some questions right now. So Bianca, feel free to speak to any of these questions you see at the moment. And we'll think right now about, 15 minutes, and then we'll kind of go into closing.
Okay, so I noticed, I think it was, and I'm just going back through the questions. I apologize. Michael, just want to get to his specific question, but I remember seeing it a couple of times. I think Michael asked, are our programs safe spaces for Black and Black trans women, especially since it's Pride Month and the death rate for Black trans women is very high? That was one of the questions. And then I think Michael also asks, do we work with Black lesbian girls, and are the programs safe places for Black lesbian and trans girls? So I know that for a Pretty Purpose, we currently don't have any girls in the program that identify as trans or lesbian. However, this conversation has actually recently come up with a new project that we are implementing this summer. And one conversation that we were having is that we want to begin that work of, you know, what do we need to implement internally and in our programming to make sure that our spaces are safe. So I think it can be implied, you know, like, hey, you know, we serve Black girls, we serve all girls, we serve girls that may be lesbian, we serve girls that, you know, may be transgendered. However, you know, we want to be intentional about being in that space. So that is actually something that is on our agenda this summer before we launch this new initiative called You Glow Girl. So thank you for asking that question. And I don't know if Tammy or Jamila want to speak on that.
Yes, I can speak on it. We definitely serve those that identify in the LGBTQIA community. If I had to say a percentage, I would say about 20-25%. And I would absolutely say that we provide a safe environment. And how I would judge that is, are they still, you know, are they coming? When we have girl talk, are there questions about, I remember we had a girl talk actually about relationships in one of our schools, and several of our girls were telling us about, you know, their relationships with another woman. And so I judge safety if they feel comfortable bringing up those personal situations, right? And so, but sometimes you don't feel as comfortable in a public setting. And so one thing we did in our Saturday Institute just last year, and this was our first time doing this, was it last year or earlier this year? I think it was earlier this year in January, either December or January. But we had a girl talk specifically for those who represent in that particular community. And so that was our first time doing that piece, where it was more of a space where you didn't necessarily have to say anything in public. There was a special event for that. So those are some things that we're exploring. But another thing that we're doing for Pride Month on social media is next week, one of our participants is interviewing several of those who identify as Black and lesbian and who are our alumni. And so we're having that conversation next week as well. And then also being able to share more stories. And so we're doing that on social media. So there's always more to do, especially because over the last year, we've been doing more, but I'm sure that there is definitely more to do. But I would always consider our spaces safe, not only with our sessions, the leadership sessions that we offer, but within their mentoring matches as well.
And I would say virtually, I have not had any young ladies identify as trans or lesbian. When I was in the school, I would definitely have young ladies that would share, because again, anytime we started our session, we would have a safe space for anyone to share. And even though Real Girls is character and leadership development, I have a strong emphasis on healthy relationships. I used to be a peer counselor for domestic violence survivors. So I emphasize healthy relationships, and it doesn't make a difference what kind of relationship they're in. There's always a space for them to share. Also, as a United States Women Ambassador, we've been doing things with Pride Month as well. And for Beyond Survival with Tammy, I'm actually looking for someone to be a guest on this show just to talk about it, just to talk about what they've gone through and their experiences, because that's another output that I provide a voice for all.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. Just scrolling through. I see someone said, will we get the recording afterward? Yes, in the slides.
There are questions in the Q&A chat. It's a separate chat.
You know what? Should have known that. Sorry, here we go. Our in-school one-on-one mentoring program serves about, okay. How can we better support the youth of color already working with white mentors? This is a great question. So one thing that we do at Pretty Purpose, because we do have quite a few white mentors that are working with our girls. We employ a group mentoring model, but before we get started and all throughout our programming, we do training, and we have those conversations, and not just with our white mentors, but as a whole about checking our own biases, how, they can support. And we have that conversation because we know that some of our mentors are white and they're working with Black girls. So I would say from our perspective, we definitely do a trauma-informed care training. We do a social emotional learning training in addition to our new mentor training. And we also try to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion and allyship initiatives throughout our training. And we do this ongoing throughout the year, just because, it's important for all of us to, check ourselves in that space. And then we reach out to them also individually, just to check in with them and just to get feedback. Because, we know that, as a white mentor, they may have questions, they may have feedback that they want to give us, and they just need some additional support. So that's something that we do, is those ongoing check-ins.
And I could jump in too, because I think this is actually a really good question. And the first thing I would say is, since you're rethinking about recruitments, making sure that the person that's recruiting is a person of color. And if it's not, then partnering with someone who is, because that person is going to be able to tell you where to recruit, what to say, some of the latest lingo that you may want to put on the flyer and so forth. So just making sure that those flyers and the communication, that marketing communication, is culturally relevant is going to be key. But as you're recruiting, you also want to make sure that you want to support the youth of color who are already working with white mentors. And for that piece, I would say, one, making sure that they have unconscious bias training. That's going to be critical. And then the second piece I would say is, while you're trying to recruit more women or people of color who's serving as mentors, while you're in that process, making sure you have more mentors who could come and serve for a day. They may not be able to do that life-on-life commitment, but maybe they can come and host a girl chat for today, right? For one session, for 2 sessions, making sure that there's more people of color that are coming to speak about their careers. So there's some one-time opportunities that you can do while you are in the process of recruitment. But I think that that's going to be critical because research actually backs it up to say that if people of color, if youth of color see people that look like them in those positions and where they want to become, they are actually more successful. So it's imperative that you do have more people of color that look like your youth on the team. And so even while you're doing this longer term recruitment process, that those one-time opportunities, those short-term opportunities are going to be critical.
So,
and I would just chime in, I'm sorry, because I'm going to keep mine short, where it says, meanwhile, how can we better support the youth of color already working with white mentors? I would just say, ask them. Ask the girls that you're working with, ask the youth that you're working with, how can we support you? How can a white mentor support you? What do you need from us for you to be successful? What do you need for us for you to grow mentally, emotionally, and physically? And, you know, you're going to get a lot of information from those youth, especially if you already have developed a relationship with them. Once you have a relationship with youth, their words are just going to flow. So that would, I would say, just ask them.
no, thank you. So one question is, who determines that your youth will be on social media and in videos because they or their organization has not put children on social media? They're just wondering. So I know for us, when our girls or when the parents and caregivers or guardians sign them up for the program, you know, they have the option to sign like a release. And then when we're doing initiatives where we want to amplify their voices on social media, we just ask them, you know, who's willing to share, who wants to share, you know, but maybe a little shy. We always ask them because some of our projects and initiatives that they're in, they do, you know, we do like them to share on social media. So that comes with our screening process is your child allowed to be used for marketing purposes? And additionally, if we're doing a special initiative, we'll just ask them, you know, because it's ultimately their choice. Is this something that you want posted on social media? Do you want to share this? Are you okay? How do you feel about us doing this? I don't know if Jamila or Tammy wanted to.
Oh, yes. I was just typing in my response in the chat. To your point, we definitely have those released. So that's number one for sure. But we also have a social media team, and that's only for girls who are 13 and over. And of course, you have to get your parents' permission. And we have 10 girls who are on the social media team.
And I responded in the chat that we just get a media release from parents.
All right, and then someone said, did you address the issue related to cameras being on? I believe there have been at least a couple of legal cases because teacher noted things in the home, the student picking up the BB gun, Southern Poverty Law Center noted Black students being suspended from virtual class for harmless behavior at home.
So this was a rough one. Whew, Lord. Of course, we set the rule in the beginning that videos must be on. I would say 4, 5, 6 months into the pandemic, that's where it got a little harder to fully implement that. And then we had to make a decision. Do we want to sit here and keep arguing about, not arguing, but saying the same thing over and over and over in terms of keeping the video on, or as long as they are engaged in terms of responding to questions or responding in the chats, as long as they were engaged, that was like our main point, right? So we wanted to make sure that when they were on, are they fully engaged in our program? So that's the main piece. And we would do small breakout sessions with a group of, 4, 5, 6 girls, sometimes up to 10 girls, And that would provide a little bit more pressure to turn on the video. But we definitely struggled with that. And at the end of the day, we decided, look, as long as they were on and engaged, that's what's most important for us.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Jamila, it was the same thing. We had this expectation, cameras on, because we say that is good Google Meet or Zoom etiquette. However, we had to shift that and I guess become more realistic that as long as they're typing in the chat or they're participating in the activity, it's okay. And I can share with you my other role. I'm split between two roles. Is I still, teach part-time. And so my role with teaching, I really had to do the same thing. Is, are they submitting the assignment? Are they responding in the chat? Do they once in a while come off mute to respond? And then I also had to think about, well, Bianca, think about your home. When you were teaching, you were also supporting your child in virtual learning. And there may be a moment where his little head might creep into the camera, and you need to turn your camera off because you need to take care of the things that are going on in your home. So I feel that with Pretty Purpose, we had to adjust that expectation. And even with teaching, that was an expectation that had to be addressed.
I just want to do quick. I know we don't have much time left, but I never required my girls to put the camera on because I feel like if I'm telling you to have a voice, then I'm taking away your voice when you say you don't want you to have your camera on. So I can't say I'm giving you a voice, but then you have to have your camera on to do that. So I don't. So what I did was do activities that they would be like, we had a tea party, so things like that. And at the tea party, I actually gave them all hats. So of course they went to show off things like that. So I've never had that issue. I did a presentation for a school and teachers didn't even have their cameras on. So I was like, I cannot enforce my girls, but I said, we're giving these girls a voice, then we have to be a voice in everything, not when we want them to have a voice. So that was just my little 2 cents.
All right, so we are just about out of time. So we're gonna start closing. We do have some resources here for you. The book Push Out, The Criminalization of Black Girls in Schools by Dr. Monique Morris, and there's a documentary. There's another book, Black Girlhood, Punishment and Resistance by Dr. Nishan Battle. This one right here, Black Girls During the Pandemic and Protests, a lot of great data and information about how the pandemic impacted Black girls, and then just some trauma and ACEs information from the CDC. Please contact us. The slides are going to go out, but this is our email information. Please feel free to contact us to continue the conversation. Additional resources from the Mentor Network are linked into the slides and the National Mentoring Resource Center. Evidence-based mentoring resources that you can apply for technical assistance. Tammy and I are consultants for Mentor Virginia. Please tap into those resources if you are able to. And after the webinar, please answer the survey questions just so we can continue to get ongoing feedback. And everyone is going to get an email with the slides, the recording, and all of the resources. And this will also be on the Collaborating Mentor webinar series webpage and on the Mentor website. And feel free to stay connected. Tweet #mentoring webinar, visit the webpage, email at collaborativewebinarseries@mentoring.org. And next month, the topic will be career readiness resources for youth serving programs. And that will be on Thursday again at 1 p.m., July 22nd. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.